Hello everyone, my name is Robert, and welcome back to our channel. In the quiet, upscale neighborhood of Shahibaug, Ahmedabad, the brutal murder of Rajiv Mehta sent shockwaves through the community. Shahibaug, known for its serene streets lined with colonial bungalows and lush gardens, had always been a place where life moved at a gentle pace. People knew each other by name, and nothing ever seemed to disturb the tranquility. But the events of August 2015 shattered this calm facade, revealing that even in a seemingly perfect neighborhood, dark secrets can fester. At the heart of this tragedy were the Mehtas. Rajiv Mehta, a 50-year-old real estate tycoon known for his sharp business acumen, and his wife Priya Mehta, a 48-year-old boutique owner whose sense of fashion and elegance had made her boutique one of the most sought-after places for Ahmedabad's elite. They had lived in Shahibaug for over 15 years and were considered pillars of the community. Their marriage was seen as perfect, the embodiment of success and happiness. They were the couple that others envied. But behind closed doors, the Mehtas were far from happy. Their closest friends were the Sharmas, who lived next door. Sanjay Sharma, a well-respected literature professor at Gujarat University, and his wife Aditi, a renowned landscape architect. They had moved to Shahibaug in 2011 with their 21-year-old son, Arjun, hoping to escape the chaos of city life in Mumbai and find peace in the slower pace of Ahmedabad. The Sharmas fit perfectly into the calm rhythm of Shahibaug, and their friendship with the Mehtas flourished. Rajiv Mehta, though born to a middle-class family in Vadodara, had always been driven by ambition. Through sheer hard work and determination, he had clawed his way to the top of the real estate industry, making a name for himself as one of Ahmedabad's top developers. By his early 40s, he had built an empire, known for transforming the skyline of the city with high-rise buildings and luxury complexes. Rajiv's success was the talk of the town, and he relished his status as one of the city's most influential figures. Priya, on the other hand, came from a privileged background. Her father was a renowned Gujarati author, and her mother was a classical singer who had performed at prestigious venues across India. Priya had grown up in a world filled with art and culture, and she had inherited her mother's grace and poise. After studying art history at Maharaja Sayajirao University in Vadodara, Priya had dreams of curating in a museum, but her life took a different turn when she fell in love with a man who eventually left her for someone else. Heartbroken, Priya gave up her dreams and retreated into herself until she met Rajiv. Rajiv and Priya's courtship was fast and intense. They met at a charity gala in 2000, where Rajiv, with his success but lacking personal connections, was instantly drawn to Priya's elegance and quiet strength. Priya, still nursing the wounds of her failed relationship, found comfort in Rajiv's steady presence and promise of a stable future. Within a year, they were married in a grand, lavish ceremony held at a heritage haveli in the heart of the old city. Their wedding was the talk of Ahmedabad, attended by celebrities, business tycoons, and political figures. It was the start of a seemingly perfect life. In the early years, the Mehtas were blissfully happy. Rajiv's career soared, and he became a household name in Ahmedabad's real estate industry. Priya found solace and a sense of purpose by opening her own boutique, which became a favorite among the city's affluent women. The boutique, located in one of the city's upscale markets, showcased Priya's refined taste and became a haven for women seeking exclusive designer wear. Business flourished, and Priya felt fulfilled. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. A few years into their marriage, Priya became pregnant, and their joy knew no bounds. Rajiv, who was often consumed by his work, took time off to care for her, and they both eagerly prepared for the arrival of their child. But their happiness was tragically cut short when Priya delivered a premature baby who did not survive. The loss was devastating for both of them. Priya, who had always longed to be a mother, was heartbroken. She tried to conceive again, but after several failed attempts and multiple rounds of fertility treatments, it became clear that their dream of having a family was slipping away. The loss of their child created a silent, unspoken rift between Rajiv and Priya. Rajiv threw himself deeper into his work, avoiding the grief that threatened to engulf him. Priya, on the other hand, retreated into her boutique, pouring all her energy into growing her business and hosting fashion events. Their home, once filled with laughter and hope, grew colder with each passing day. The nursery they had lovingly prepared remained untouched, a constant reminder of their sorrow. Priya would often sit alone in the nursery, surrounded by the ghost of a life that never came to be. By the summer of 2015, the Mehtas' marriage had become a shell of what it once was. To the outside world, they still appeared to be the perfect couple. Rajiv was on the verge of closing one of the biggest deals of his career, which would cement his status as one of Gujarat's top developers. Priya's boutique was thriving, and she had become a socialite, mingling with Ahmedabad's elite at fashion events and charity galas. But behind the scenes, their relationship was hanging by a thread. They barely spoke except to discuss social engagements or business matters, and their once passionate love had turned into distant cohabitation. Meanwhile, their neighbors, the Sharmas, were living their own seemingly perfect life. Sanjay Sharma was a respected academic, known for his insightful lectures on Indian literature. Aditi's work as a landscape architect was equally impressive, and her designs had transformed many of Ahmedabad's most prestigious homes. Their son, Arjun, had recently returned from college, where he was studying environmental science. Over the summer, he was working on a conservation project with a local NGO, spending much of his time outdoors, immersed in nature. It was during a neighborhood block party in June that Arjun first truly noticed Priya Mehta. The Mehtas were hosting the event, and Rajiv, as usual, was the center of attention, discussing his latest business ventures with the other men. Priya, feeling out of place among the crowd, had slipped away to the garden for some air. Arjun, who had also grown tired of the small talk, wandered outside and found Priya sitting alone on a bench, gazing at the plants. They struck up a conversation about gardening, something Priya had recently taken an interest in to fill her lonely days. Arjun, passionate about environmental science, eagerly shared his knowledge, and the two found themselves talking for hours. Over the next few weeks, Arjun and Priya's friendship deepened. Priya invited Arjun to help with her garden, and they spent long afternoons together, working side by side in the hot summer sun. Arjun was captivated by Priya's sophistication and beauty, while Priya found herself drawn to Arjun's youthful energy and passion. What began as an innocent friendship soon blossomed into something more. Their first kiss happened one rainy afternoon in July. They had been working in the garden when a sudden downpour forced them to take shelter in the gazebo. As they stood watching the rain, a tension built between them, and before they knew it, Priya leaned in and kissed Arjun. From that moment on, their affair became a dangerous obsession. They found ways to be together in secret, meeting in Priya's boutique after hours or in quiet corners of the city where they wouldn't be seen. The thrill of the forbidden relationship consumed them both. But as the weeks passed, the weight of their deception began to take its toll. Priya, torn between her desire for Arjun and her guilt over betraying Rajiv, felt herself spiraling out of control. Arjun, too, was conflicted. He was falling in love with Priya, but he knew their relationship was doomed. Then came the fateful day of August 10th, 2015. Rajiv had left the house early for a crucial meeting about his upcoming real estate deal, leaving Priya alone. Knowing Rajiv would be gone all day, Priya sent a message to Arjun, asking him to come over in the afternoon. Arjun, who had been grappling with his feelings, decided it was time to end the affair. He agreed to meet Priya, intending to tell her it was over. But when Arjun arrived at the Mehta home, his resolve wavered. Priya welcomed him with a nervous smile and led him to the bedroom. They kissed, and in that moment, both of them forgot the world outside. They didn't hear Rajiv's car pull into the driveway. Rajiv had returned home unexpectedly, frustrated by how his deal had fallen apart in the meeting. As he stepped into the house, something felt off. The door was slightly ajar, and there was an eerie stillness in the air. Rajiv climbed the stairs and walked into the bedroom, only to be met with a scene that would haunt him forever. His wife, the woman he had loved for 15 years, was in bed with the neighbor's son. Rajiv's shock quickly turned to rage. He lunged at Arjun, grabbing him by the collar and throwing him to the floor. Priya screamed, trying to pull the sheets around herself, while Arjun, in a panic, tried to get away. Rajiv, blinded by fury, began punching Arjun, shouting accusations of betrayal and demanding to know how long this had been going on. In the chaos, Arjun managed to grab a heavy brass statue from the bedside table. Acting on pure instinct and desperation, he swung it at Rajiv. The statue connected with Rajiv's head with a sickening thud. Rajiv staggered, his eyes wide with disbelief, before collapsing onto the floor, blood pooling beneath him. The room fell into a deathly silence. Priya stood frozen, her face pale as she stared at Rajiv's motionless body. Arjun dropped the statue, his hands shaking violently. He looked at Priya, horror filling his eyes. "What have we done?" he whispered. Priya, trembling, knelt beside Rajiv, checking for a pulse, but it was too late. Rajiv was dead. Panic surged through her. She looked up at Arjun, her voice shaking but firm. "We have to hide the body. No one can know about this. You'll go to jail, Arjun." Arjun, dazed and terrified, could only nod. The next few hours passed in a blur. Priya and Arjun wrapped Rajiv's body in a bedsheet and carried it down the stairs, struggling under its weight. They loaded the body into Arjun's car, driving to a remote plot of land on the outskirts of Ahmedabad, an undeveloped property owned by Rajiv's real estate firm. They dumped the body in a ditch, covering it with dirt and debris. When they returned to the Mehta home, Priya and Arjun set about cleaning up the blood in the bedroom. They scrubbed the floor and the walls, trying to erase any trace of what had happened. The room, once a place of intimacy, now felt like a crime scene, the scent of bleach mingling with the heavy stench of guilt. For the next 2 days, Priya told everyone that Rajiv was away on a business trip. She answered calls from his colleagues, telling them that he was out of town and unreachable. But when Rajiv failed to show up for an important meeting, his business partners grew suspicious and contacted the police. Detective Radhika Desai was assigned to the case. A seasoned investigator with a sharp eye for detail, she immediately sensed that something was wrong. She visited Priya at the Mehta home, asking about Rajiv's whereabouts. Priya, struggling to maintain her composure, repeated her story about the business trip, but Radhika noticed the small inconsistencies in her account. The hesitation in her voice, the nervous fidgeting of her hands. As the investigation progressed, Radhika began to dig deeper into the Mehtas' lives. She interviewed neighbors, and several mentioned seeing Arjun Sharma's car parked outside the Mehta home on the day Rajiv disappeared. This raised red flags for the detective, who began to focus her attention on Arjun. When questioned by the police, Arjun nervously repeated Priya's story, claiming he had been helping Priya with some gardening that day. But Radhika wasn't convinced. The breakthrough in the case came when forensic experts found traces of blood in the Mehta bedroom, despite Priya and Arjun's attempts to clean it up. The police also discovered fibers from the bedsheet in the trunk of Arjun's car, along with small traces of blood. With this evidence, Radhika obtained a search warrant for Arjun's car and the undeveloped land owned by Rajiv. 2 days later, Rajiv's body was discovered, partially buried in the dirt. The forensic evidence was damning, and it didn't take long for Radhika to connect the dots. Confronted with the overwhelming evidence, Arjun broke down during questioning. Confessing to the affair and the murder, Priya was arrested soon after. The trial that followed was one of the most sensational cases Ahmedabad had ever seen. The media latched onto the story of the wealthy real estate tycoon, his unfaithful wife, and the young neighbor who became her lover. As the details of the affair and the murder emerged, the community was left in shock. Neighbors who had once admired the Mehtas were horrified by the darkness that had been hidden behind the walls of their beautiful home. In court, Priya broke down in tears as she testified about the affair and the events leading up to Rajiv's death. She admitted to the relationship with Arjun, but insisted that she had never meant for Rajiv to die. Arjun, too, expressed deep regret, claiming that he had acted in a moment of fear and desperation, but despite their remorse, the jury found both of them guilty. Arjun Sharma was sentenced to 25 years in prison for second-degree murder. Priya Mehta, convicted of being an accessory to the murder, was sentenced to 15 years. As the judge read their sentences, the courtroom was silent, the weight of the tragedy hanging heavily in the air. The Mehta home, once a symbol of success and happiness, stood empty and abandoned in the months that followed. The once vibrant garden, where Priya and Arjun had spent so many afternoons together, became overgrown with weeds, a haunting reminder of the lives that had been destroyed. Shahibaug, a neighborhood that had once prided itself on its peace and tranquility, was left to grapple with the aftermath of the scandal. The Sharmas, devastated by their son's actions, withdrew from public life, becoming reclusive and moving away from Ahmedabad. The Mehtas' legacy, once defined by their wealth and social standing, was forever tainted by the tragedy that had unfolded behind closed doors. Detective Radhika Desai, despite solving the case, was left with a lingering sense of sadness. She had seen the worst of human nature, the betrayal, the greed, and the violence that could lurk beneath the surface of even the most seemingly perfect lives. In the end, the story of Rajiv and Priya Mehta was a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that even in the most idyllic communities, darkness can take root, and the facade of normalcy can be shattered in an instant.